Hey guys, Raya here. For my emergency preparedness goal, I want to feel confident in multiple weapon types for different circumstances. So I decided to learn the basics of archery. Watch as I give it a try. I started by heading to a local archery range that offered rentals and range time for a reasonable price. They had multiple ranges, a techno range, a small beginner range, and a larger range upstairs. I got a quick lesson from one of the employees, then started practicing. I surprised myself with my first shot being so close to center. Beginner's luck really is a thing, I guess. I practiced the first few rounds from the closer line. I think it was around 20 feet from the target. Then I moved to the back line, about 30 feet away. My shots were a bit more spread out in the first round. But in my second round, I got a bit better at aiming. I even hit a bullseye. I did quite a few rounds after that, changing up my aiming strategies to try to find a more consistent shot. Honestly, I'm surprised I did any good. I kept both eyes open the whole time, so my depth perception was probably a bit off. But I felt alright by my last couple rounds. I did have poor form on a couple shots. I ended up getting a pretty bad bruise from the string hitting me. I went home and did a ton of research on entry-level bows. I ultimately wanted a bow that didn't cost too much, was beginner friendly, was adjustable, and that would get the job done in emergency hunting or defense scenarios. There was a lot of advice online, a decent amount of which said to just bite the bullet and make the big investment from the beginning, but I can't excuse dropping $1,000 on a new hobby. So obviously, I tried to strike a balance between getting reliable equipment and not breaking the bank. There were a lot of opinions on good brands for beginner bows, but a lot of those opinions were emphasizing the best bow for the price, and the prices were still generally over $650 or more. I even tried looking for used bows in my area, but the prices were still really high, and there was no guarantee for quality or condition, and I didn't want to risk getting a bow that had been dry fired. So I did end up going on Amazon to shop. I looked at the Bear brand, but it just wasn't as adjustable as I wanted it for the price range I wanted. There were obviously a bunch of cheap China bows with mediocre reviews, but they were mostly built for youth, and I wanted something reliable and built for adults. So then I came across the Sanlita Dragon X8. Obviously it was still assembled in China, but it was partially made with US products, which seemed a bit better to me. There were mostly good reviews, and the really bad reviews seemed more like outliers. so I went on YouTube to find reviews of the bow from different archery creators. These guys all seemed to have the same opinion. The bow itself was good quality, some of the accessories would need to be replaced, and it was a good budget option for getting into the sport and still having a product you could rely on. So I decided that that was the one for me. I got a few replacement accessories, like a whisker biscuit rest, a different wrist strap, practice tips and broadheads for upgrading to better arrows, and then finally some protective gear to prevent bruises in the future. All told, the bow and accessory upgrades came to $300. It all came nicely packaged and protected. There was a soft carry bag, the bow, a sight, a rest, an arrow pull, a mounted quiver, the stabilizer, a bow rest, a dozen arrows, a wrist strap, and all the Allen wrenches needed to adjust the bow. I installed my replacement wrist strap, then I removed these 2 screws to attach the sight. It has a couple spots to adjust how far you want it. Then I got out my new Whisker Biscuit arrow rest. You can see how it's much thinner and softer bristled than the included rest. The rest just gets screwed in with this one bolt and then needs to be adjusted to the person. I got out one of the arrows to give me a straight line to reference for the rest and sight adjustment. I eyeballed it to start since I wanted to take it to the local store for fine tuning. You can tune it yourself by lining it up horizontally with the stabilizer and the top bar, and then making sure the arrow is lined up vertically in the center with the sight and the bars. Then I attached the quiver mount. This part just twists off, then screws in on the other side of the sight. I checked the manual for the right spot for my draw length, and then unscrewed the little screws on both sides of the cams to put them in the right slot. There was a little groove carved on the cam to line up with the right number. Then I had to pull this cable to bring the screw out to where I could fasten it. It was a bit tight to pull. I needed help in the end. I unboxed the rest of my accessories, and then I loaded the quivers. Finally, I packed it all away in the bag. It was nice that there were Velcro straps built in to make things feel secure. And there were a good variety of them to put everything in its own place. I took the bow into the shop to get tuned and have them cut arrows to size for my draw length. They had it for a couple days, and then I came in to pick it up and try it out. I brought the pack of practice tips that I got on Amazon and installed them at the range. It was pretty easy since they just screw into the inserts. I got geared up with the arm guard and the trigger pull. Then I tried out the bow. I did the short range first just to get comfortable. My first shot was alright. I did a round of 6, but my trigger pull slipped on the last arrow and it hit the wall. I was aiming at the wrong target for the rest of the shots on that first round. Silly me. I did another round from the front line and played around with the different ranges on the sight. I felt pretty good about how straight this line ended up. Then I moved to the back line. The first couple rounds, I got warmed up and started hitting more on target, which was nice to see. My last round for the day ended up pretty good from the back line. Not bad for my second day ever shooting a bow. I went back a third day to get in a longer practice. I started downstairs again to get warmed up. It was fun to get some unique shots with my mounted camera. You can see how tricky it is to get the sight lined up and then level the bow. It's a lot to keep track of at once. This was a super fun angle, and my shots weren't bad. Once I was warmed up, it was time to hit the big range upstairs. Downstairs is maybe a little more than a 10-yard shot, but upstairs is a 20-yard shot, and that double distance really makes a difference. My first round went okay, but I definitely got lucky on that near bullseye. It was a lot of fun to practice up here, but it was absolutely a steep learning curve for the distance. My second round had a bit of improvement, which is always nice to see. My arm got pretty tired holding up the bow on the next few rounds, long enough to sight, level, and shoot. But you can see my groupings really improved as I practiced. When I got home, I set up my new hunting arrow tips, since you can't use those on the range. These things were so sharp and felt really deadly. I was definitely a bit sketchy when I put the first one on, and I spun the head at first to screw it in, but eventually realized I should twist the shaft instead. I made sure to get the same grain of practice tips and broadheads so that I was used to the same weight of arrows. The broadheads didn't fit in the gap in the quiver as originally packaged, so I adjusted the rubber grip and the attachment point so it would all fit better. It was really fun to practice this new skill, and it was crazy how much of a difference the equipment made, especially once it was tuned to my draw weight and length. I barely touched the tip of one broadhead when loading the quiver. These guys are sharp. I definitely need to practice a lot more, but it was fun to live out my Robin Hood dreams. Thanks for watching!